Everything changes after you invest $17,000, but not in the way most people expect. You do not wake up rich, you do not suddenly escape your job, your phone does not light up with some secret message from the stock market saying, "Congratulations, you made it." $17,000 is not a magic number, and it is not enough money to retire, relax forever, or stop caring about bills. But for a normal person building wealth from the ground up, $17,000 can be the first amount that actually changes how money feels. Before that, investing often feels like a theory. You put in $50, then $100, then maybe $200, and nothing dramatic happens. The balance moves by a few dollars. One day you are up $12, the next day you are down $18, and it feels almost pointless. You hear people talk about compound interest, financial freedom, passive income, long-term wealth, and all these big, exciting ideas, but your own account looks boring. It does not feel like freedom. It feels like a slow savings account with anxiety. And that is exactly why so many people quit early. They do not quit because investing fails. They quit because the beginning does not give them enough emotional proof that it is working. Welcome back to Motion Biz. Today we are talking about why everything changes after you invest $17,000 and why this ordinary-looking number can become one of the most important milestones in your financial life. The first major change is that your money finally becomes large enough to talk back. A 10% gain on $100 is $10. That's nice, but nobody feels wealthy because of $10. A 10% gain on $1,000 is $100. Better, but still not life-changing. A 10% gain on $5,000 is $500, and now it starts to feel interesting. But a 10% gain on $17,000 is $1,700. That's real money. That can cover rent in some places. That can pay for car repairs. That can handle several months of utilities. That can become a serious part of an emergency fund. And the most important part is that this money can show up without you working extra hours for it. That is when your brain starts understanding the difference between earning money and owning assets. When you earn money, your time creates the money. When you invest, your money begins creating more money. At first, it creates so little that it feels almost fake. But once your portfolio reaches a meaningful size, you start seeing the machine wake up. $17,000 is often the point where the machine is no longer silent. It is still small, but it is alive.
And once you see your money move by hundreds or thousands of dollars, your relationship with money changes. You stop seeing every dollar only as something to spend. You start seeing it as something that can work. $100 is no longer just a dinner, a pair of shoes, or another random purchase. It is a future worker. It is a small piece of capital. It is something that could sit inside your portfolio and grow for years. This does not mean you should never enjoy life. Nobody builds a good life by being miserable with money. But after you build a real investment balance, you start asking a different question before spending. Is this purchase worth slowing down my freedom? That question alone can change your habits. Most people try to save money through guilt. They tell themselves they are bad for buying coffee, bad for ordering food, bad for wanting nice things, bad for enjoying life. But guilt usually does not work for long. It gets exhausting. Investing creates a better kind of discipline because you are not just saying no to spending, you are saying yes to something bigger. You are protecting a future version of yourself. You are building proof that your life can become more stable, more flexible, and more powerful. That is why $17,000 can change your identity. Before you build a serious investment balance, you may think of yourself as someone who is trying to save, trying to invest, trying to get better with money. But after you reach a number like $17,000, you are no longer just trying. You have evidence. You can open the account and see it. You built that. You made repeated decisions that most people avoid. You kept money instead of spending it. You invested when it was easier to wait. You continued even when the beginning felt slow. That evidence changes how you see yourself. You are not just a consumer anymore. You are an owner. You own productive assets. Not enough to be free yet, but enough to prove that you are moving in the right direction. And people behave according to who they believe they are. If someone believes they are always broke, they spend like nothing matters. If someone believes they are too late, they take desperate risks. If someone believes money always disappears, they never protect it. But when you see $17,000 invested, your brain starts saying, wait, maybe I am the kind of person who can actually build wealth. That belief is powerful because the first part of investing is not really about money. It is about becoming the type of person who can keep money. Many people think they need more income first, then they will become disciplined. But often it works the other way around. You become disciplined, and then you become capable of keeping more income when it comes. $17,000 is proof that you are developing that ability. Another thing changes at this level. Compounding finally starts to feel real. Everyone loves showing compound interest charts where a small amount becomes huge after 30 years. The math is real, but in the early stage it doesn't feel real. When your balance is small, compounding is almost invisible. It's like an engine running underground. You have to believe it is there, even though you can't hear it yet.
But as the balance grows, the engine gets louder. Market gains become noticeable. Dividends, if your investments pay them, start to feel less tiny. Reinvested returns buy more shares. Those shares create more future growth. The cycle begins to show itself. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You realize your portfolio is not just a number, it is a system. It expands, contracts, reacts, recovers, and keeps moving. If you keep feeding it and avoid destroying it with panic or reckless bets, it can become one of the most important systems in your life. But $17,000 does not only make gains feel real, it also makes losses feel real. A 5% drop is $850. A 10% drop is $1,700. That can hurt. You might open your account and feel like weeks or months of saving disappeared in a few bad market days. This is where investing becomes emotionally serious. When your balance is tiny, market drops are annoying. When your balance is $17,000, market drops can feel personal. And that is when you begin learning the difference between a gambler and an investor. A gambler reacts to pain. An investor understands the plan. A gambler sees red and panics. An investor asks whether the long-term reason for owning the asset has changed. A gambler wants the market to make them feel good today. An investor accepts that the market rewards patience over time, not comfort every morning. This is one of the biggest lessons investing teaches you. Volatility is not a bug in the system. It is the price of admission. You cannot demand long-term growth while refusing short-term discomfort. If investing were comfortable all the time, the rewards would be much smaller because everyone would do it perfectly. The reason patience pays is because patience is difficult. $17,000 forces you to practice that patience with real money. You learn not to check the app every hour. You learn that green days do not make you a genius and red days do not make you a failure. You learn that the goal is not to feel excited every day. The goal is to stay in the game long enough for the math to matter. That maturity is one of the hidden rewards of investing. You don't just grow your money, you grow your emotional control. And emotional control is rare. Many people ruin their finances, not because they are stupid, but because they cannot sit through discomfort without doing something impulsive. They sell low because they are scared. They buy high because they are excited. They chase trends because they feel behind. They take risks they do not understand because slow progress feels insulting. But once you have built a real portfolio, you start respecting the money more. You realize $17,000 represents hours of your life. It represents discipline. It represents sacrifices nobody saw. It represents decisions that were boring in the moment, but powerful over time. That respect makes you more careful. You begin to care more about diversification. You begin to ask what you actually own. You become less impressed by hype and more interested in staying alive financially. You stop looking for the fastest way to double your money and start looking for the strongest way to keep growing without blowing yourself up. That shift matters because wealth is not only about making money, it's about not constantly resetting back to zero. Plenty of people make money. Far fewer keep it. $17,000 teaches you that protecting capital is just as important as growing it. Another change is that your timeline gets longer. When you are broke or living paycheck to paycheck, your mind is forced into survival mode. What is due this week? What can I afford today? What happens if one bill hits at the wrong time? Short-term pressure makes long-term thinking feel impossible. But once you have money invested, even if it's not a fortune, your brain starts stretching into the future. You begin asking better questions.
What happens if I invest every month for 5 years? What happens if I increase my income but keep my lifestyle the same? What happens if $17,000 becomes $25,000, then $50,000, then $100,000? Suddenly, the future is not just a dream, it becomes a math problem. And a future you can calculate
is a future you can influence. You cannot control the market, inflation, interest rates, politics, or the economy. But you can control your savings rate, your spending habits, your risk level, your consistency, and your willingness to keep learning. Once your portfolio has weight, those choices feel more important because you can see their impact. Adding $500 to an empty account feels like starting from nothing. Adding $500 to $17,000 feels like pushing a snowball that already exists. That is a completely different feeling. You are no longer trying to create momentum from zero, you are feeding momentum. This is why the first serious milestone is so important. The first 1,000 proves you can start. The first 10,000 proves you can continue. But around 17,000, you begin to feel that investing might actually become a major force in your life if you stay consistent. And consistency is where ordinary people win. Most people think wealth comes from dramatic moments. One perfect stock, one perfect business, one perfect opportunity, one lucky break. But for most regular investors, wealth is built through repeated, boring actions. You invest when it is exciting. You invest when it is boring. You invest when the headlines are scary. You invest when everyone is bragging. You keep going without needing every month to feel special. Over time, boring becomes powerful. Another thing that changes is how you view status. Before investing seriously, it is easy to confuse looking rich with becoming rich. Looking rich usually requires spending money. Becoming rich usually requires keeping money and buying assets. Those two paths often move in opposite directions. The person with the expensive car may look successful, but if every payment traps their future income, they may be less free than they appear. The person quietly investing every month may look ordinary, but behind the scenes, they are buying options, flexibility, and peace. $17,000 helps you understand that peace is a luxury. Options are a luxury. Not panicking over every emergency is a luxury.
Having money that works while you sleep is a luxury. And unlike flashy purchases, those luxuries do not need applause. You can build them privately. That private progress becomes addictive in a healthy way. You start caring less about proving success and more about actually owning it. Your account balance becomes a quiet reminder that you are choosing a different path. And this path can affect more than money. When you prove to yourself that you can invest consistently, you begin trusting yourself more. You may become more serious about your career. You may look for ways to increase your income. You may start learning skills, avoiding waste, and protecting your attention. You may become more selective about who influences you. Because once you are building something real, you notice how expensive bad mindsets can be. People who mock discipline, normalize being broke, pressure you to overspend, or call every smart decision boring, can quietly pull you backward. You do not have to judge them, but you also do not have to copy them. Your portfolio becomes evidence that you are allowed to choose differently. And maybe the best part is that this journey does not require perfection. You can have slow months. You can miss a contribution. You can make a mistake and still recover. You can enjoy your life and still build wealth. The goal's not to become a robot who never spends. The goal is to build a system strong enough to survive being human. $17,000 is not the finish line. It is the point where the process starts to feel real. It is where compounding becomes visible, where volatility becomes a teacher, where spending becomes more intentional, where your identity begins to shift from consumer to owner, and where the future starts feeling less like luck and more like a plan. So if you are not there yet, do not be discouraged. The beginning is supposed to feel slow. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are building the part of the machine that nobody sees. Keep learning. Keep investing in a way that fits your goals and risk tolerance. Avoid the temptation to throw away years of progress chasing overnight results. And remember, the real power of $17,000 is not only the money itself. It's the proof. Proof that you can start. Proof that you can stay consistent. Proof that your future does not have to be controlled by your past habits. Because once you see your money working for you, even quietly, something changes. You stop asking whether investing works. You start asking how far you can take it.